September 30th, the Macedonian camp. Some officers urged a night attack. Strike first, catch the Persians unprepared, avoid the trap entirely. Alexander refused. "I will not steal victory like a thief." He wanted Darius to see him coming, to face him in daylight, to lose with no excuses. That night, Alexander walked the battlefield alone. He studied the ground Darius had prepared so carefully, and he saw exactly where the empire would break. Dawn broke on October 1st. The Persian line stretched across the horizon. 250,000 men representing the full might of the world's largest empire. At the front, 200 scythed chariots waited to tear through infantry formations. Behind them, war elephants stood ready to shatter anything that survived. At the center sat Darius III in his royal chariot, surrounded by his finest guards. On the left flank, Bessus commanded elite Bactrian and Scythian cavalry, fast, aggressive, and deadly. On the right, Mazaeus led Syrian and Mesopotamian horsemen. This was imperial power incarnate. Across from them stood 47,000 Macedonians and Greeks. At the center, 31,000 heavy infantry formed the Phalanx. Locked shoulder to shoulder, holding 18-foot sarissas, they created a moving wall of bronze and wood. Behind them, 9,000 light troops, archers, peltasts, and shock infantry trained to screen the line and strike where the phalanx couldn't turn. On the wings, 7,000 cavalry. Alexander himself commanded the right, the companion cavalry, his personal strike force, positioned for the decisive blow. On the left, Parmenion commanded the defensive flank with Thessalian and allied Greek cavalry, tasked with one mission: hold the line while Alexander tore the battlefield apart. Alexander rode along his line. He stopped before his army and spoke. "Men of Macedon, they fight for gold. They fight because they are commanded. You fight because this ground is yours to stand on. Behind us is Greece. There is no road home that doesn't go through this field. Ahead stands a king who believes numbers decide fate. Today, show him what discipline decides. Hold the line. Watch me. Where I ride, follow. If I fall, do not stop." Silence. Then shields slammed against shields. Spears struck bronze. A roar rolled across the Macedonian line. Not celebration, commitment. The Persian wings stretched far beyond the Macedonian line. Encirclement wasn't a possibility, it was the plan. Alexander had only one option: move first. Instead of advancing forward, Alexander ordered his entire line to drift slowly to the right, away from the leveled ground Darius had prepared. It looked like a catastrophic mistake, the kind that gets an army surrounded and destroyed. Bessus understood immediately. Alexander wasn't attacking the center, he was trying to slip past it. To prevent this, Bessus extended his cavalry farther and farther right, keeping pace with Alexander's drift. Thousands of Bactrian and Scythian horsemen stretched the Persian line. The center began to thin. Unwilling to fight on broken ground, Bessus made his decision. He attacked. Persian cavalry surged forward, charging the Macedonian right. The bait was taken. The Persian left was now fully committed. Darius saw his opportunity. 200 scythed chariots surged forward. War elephants charged behind them. The ground shook. But the phalanx didn't panic. It opened lanes. Chariots screamed through empty corridors while projectiles cut down drivers. The machines tore past without finding targets. The elephants followed and met the same fate. Harassed by skirmishers and blinded by spears, they staggered sideways where phalanx ranks closed and finished them. Darius's gamble collapsed in seconds. On the opposite flank, Mazaeus hurled his cavalry at Parmenion, who fought desperately to hold. Darius ordered a massive infantry charge, tens of thousands pushing forward, driving straight into the center. The Persian army was fully committed, every reserve, every option. That decision would cost Darius everything. With Bessus locked in combat and infantry pulled from the center, a weakness appeared, a thin, frayed section of the Persian left center where order had broken, where the king now stood exposed. Alexander saw it instantly. Gathering his companion cavalry into a tight wedge, he wheeled left. Then he charged, not at the army, at the king. The wedge smashed into the Persian center. Suddenly, the fighting wasn't distant anymore. It was in front of Darius. Alexander pushed closer, cutting through guards, advancing step by step toward the royal chariot. Darius prepared to defend himself. Then he broke. For the second time in his life, the King of Kings turned his chariot and ran. The moment Darius fled, the Persian center collapsed. Orders stopped. Units disengaged. What had been an empire became a crowd. Bessus pulled back. The rest dissolved into chaos. Alexander saw the opening and gave chase. Then a message arrived. Parmenion was in trouble. Mazaeus, unaware that Darius had fled, was close to breaking the Macedonian left flank. Alexander made a decision few conquerors would have made. He turned back. He reinforced Parmenion. He stabilized the flank. Only then did the battle truly end. Darius escaped, but his empire did not. Gaugamela shattered the Persian Empire's center of gravity. Before this battle, Persia was a functioning superpower. Its governors commanded armies. Its cities controlled wealth and supply routes. Darius, however flawed, was still king. After Gaugamela, everything unraveled. Babylon opened its gates without resistance. Susa surrendered its treasury. Persepolis, the ceremonial capital, was burned to the ground. Alexander didn't conquer Persia city by city. He destroyed its command structure in a single afternoon. But the war wasn't finished. Darius was still alive, and as long as the king lived, resistance could still form. So Alexander pushed east, chasing not territory but legitimacy. That pursuit led him into the mountains, into narrow passes, toward one final confrontation: the Battle of the Persian Gate, where the empire made its last stand. Gaugamela wasn't won by superior numbers. It was won by seeing the enemy's plan and turning it against them, by understanding that wars aren't decided by the size of armies, but by breaking the center that holds them together. Alexander knew that empires don't collapse from the outside. They collapse when their leader runs, when the symbol of authority abandons the field, when the King of Kings proves he values his life more than his throne. On October 1st, 331 BCE, 47,000 men faced 250,000 and won. Not through luck, not through recklessness, but through discipline, timing, and the understanding that the right strike at the right moment can end wars before sunset. History isn't made by those who have the most. It's made by those who see what others miss, by those who refuse to accept that numbers decide fate, by those who understand that the impossible becomes inevitable when you know exactly where to strike. This was Gaugamela, the day one era ended and another began, the day Alexander became king of Asia, the day an empire learned that power without courage is just a crowd waiting to scatter. And the lesson remains: it's not the size of the force that matters, it's the strength of the center and the courage to break it.